Here we are at Learn Python 3 the Hard Way, exercise 34, and we're going to cover how you access elements of a list. So you've already been using lists. I sort of showed you for loops over lists. Now we're going to, and in the exercise for for loops over lists, I did a little bit of this. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper, okay? And really you should just read this exercise and then you should be able to understand this pretty easy. Okay, so the key thing with lists, I mean, they're not complicated, right? So if I did something like bugs, okay, and we're going to do ant, firefly, and let's say beetle, okay? Now, let's say I had a race, right? And it's a bug race, and I've got an ant versus a firefly versus a beetle, all right? And the ant is going to come across the finish line. This list represents when bugs crossed the finish line of this little race. Okay. Now, I want to say, what is the first, right? I want to say, what is the first bug that won the race? Okay. So I need to put a number inside here, right? To index into bugs to get the first one. Now, we talked about this when we covered for loops. The concept of indexing in a programming language is based on the fact that I can access this randomly. I could do the bug at 2, I can do the bug at 1, I can do the bug at 0. I don't have to if I want to get to the beetle, I don't have to do anything like this. I don't have to say go through one, then go through the first one, then the second one, then the third one, right? I can access it randomly. So because of that, it works out better to start off with 0. And then when we have 0, we can do negative indexes. We can do different math over the ranges of the indexes. We can do anything we want. So if I want the first bug, what I do in my head is I subtract 1 and I do the 0th bug. There's no such thing, I think. Maybe there's another language that has that concept, but for English, we don't really have a 0th. There's like no concept. So because I'm accessing things at random in a list, I am going to use numbers that start at 0. And this is just something you have to get used to. And there's a special kind of error in programming called the off by 1. It's famous. So many errors and bugs are because of one off by 1 error. A lot of them related to this, starting counting at 1 versus 0. It's just something that's very difficult to deal with. So incidentally, one of the advantages of a for loop is I don't have as many, for bug in bugs, I don't have as many opportunities to make off by 1 errors. If I use a while loop, I may constantly get it wrong and not start at 0, start at 1, not go to the end is another common off by 1. Like I always miss the end, right? So when I do a for loop, for bug in bug, print bug. There we go. When I do a for loop, I don't have to worry about 0. I don't have to worry about what's the beginning. I don't have to worry about anything. Okay. So now that we know how to index into it, we always have to start at 0. If you're having a hard time understanding that, just look at your list. Say, I want the second one. So I subtract 1. If you use the endings of the numbers like first, second, third, you subtract 1. Okay. If someone says, give me the bug at 4, that's going to be 4. So we don't have a 4 bug. So let's say, give me a bug at 2. That's the index 2. If they say, give me the second bug, second, so I subtract 1 is 1. And there you go. Okay. Oh, I'm doing bug, which is a leftover. If you remember from the exercise on for loops, that bug variable is left around after the for loop runs. So I actually just demonstrated one of the bugs that comes up from that. That would actually drive you crazy. And again, off by 1. If you ran into this bug, if you ran into the bug related to my bugs here, there's a lot of serendipity right now. But basically, one single character, the difference between bug versus bugs after running this for loop up here, is the difference between getting an E versus getting an S. And that would drive you crazy trying to figure that out. So trust me, having the variables lying around after the for loop is a little not savory in my opinion. Anyways, so that's indexing into stuff. Let's do a bit more indexing. So we covered some of this too, but I could say I want from 1 on, right? So I use the colon to indicate a range from 1 to something, right? I can do 1 to 2, which is just that one element. I can do 0 to 2, right? But 0 to 2 is the same as doing colon to 2. And then if I want the whole list, it's just from end to end. I can also do negative indexes. So that gives me the last one. And there's no negative 0. Oh, there is a negative 0. Negative 0 and 0 are the same thing. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Negative 1, negative 2, right? What's negative 3 going to give me? And. So because we're using a 0 index, there's all sorts of handy indexing we can do. We can sort of loop around, loop back through it. We can do negative and positive. We can do all sorts of really nice stuff with this. And then I believe, let's do, I think we can do that. Yeah. So I can get the 1 by the 2. This is going by a certain number. So it's going to go from, I think we can do this. We can go from negative 0 going back. Negative 0 to negative 3 going in reverse. Yeah, you can get really crazy with some of these ones. No. To 3, no. Let's go from 0 to negative 2 by 2. Still nothing. Anyways, you can do some crazy indexing, but for the most part, you do bugs and you pick ranges from 1 to 3. Or most of the time, you do that. Okay. Now, where does this come up quite a lot? Well, let's say I'm going to do hello equals hello world, how are you today? Okay, and I want to process that. So what I can do is I can do hello split at the spaces. That gives me a list like that, right? And then if I want the second one, that'd be world. Second means I subtract 1, and there you go. So that shows up a lot. Okay, so that's indexing, kind of just an extra, read the book, and then this is an extra bit on indexing, how to do it, why it starts at 0, and it's not that difficult. I mean, most of this is just, it's a list, right? You need to be able to access it somehow, so it's going to be numbers. And that's that. When we get into dictionaries, you'll see that it's a different structure for seeing how, storing things that are related to each other, not just numeric indexes. So we'll cover that soon. All right, see you at the next exercise.